Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hashtag Clocked In with me, your host, Jordan Edwards. I'm thrilled to have you tune in as we dive into the dynamic world of productivity, success, and stories of incredible individuals who've mastered the art of getting things done. Whether you're commuting, hitting the gym, or just relaxing at home, this podcast is the go-to source for inspiration and actionable tips to level up your productivity game. I'm on a mission to unravel the secrets of those who seem to effortlessly manage their time and achieve their goals. So if you're ready to clock in and unlock your full potential, you're in the right place. We've got a lineup of amazing guests, industry experts, and thought leaders who will share their insights and strategies to help us crush your to-do list and make the most out of every moment. Get ready to get inspired, motivated, and equipped with the tools you need to supercharge your productivity. This is Hashtag Clocked In with Jordan Edwards. Let's dive in. Hey, what's going on, guys? We got a special guest today here. We have Will Henshall. He's the CEO of Metal, and he's a creative entrepreneur with a remarkable 30-year journey in music, technology, and community building. Will, we're so excited to have you here on the Hashtag Clocked In podcast. You've done so many incredible things in all different regions and areas of the world. How do you think about transitioning? Because I feel like there's so many people that really struggle with that. The idea of changing.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So as you just said, yes, I've had three main kind of areas of careers that I've done. You bring the same energy and interest and sort of joie de vivre as a human to anything you do, right?
Yes.
That's what you do. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So music. I started my career back in the 80s, a long time ago now, working in recording studios. Now, people know me because I was the founder and main guitarist in the band London Beat. In the 90s, we had five big hits, including I've Been Thinking About You, which is today one of the most played golden oldies from that era on the radio everywhere in the world. You know, if you're listening to this, you'll know I've been thinking about you. You've heard this many times. That was not how I started in music in that period of my life. I started off as a recording studio engineer, recording other people's music. So I learned how to mic a drum kit. I learned how to make a guitar sound good. I learned about working with producers. Of course, in the recording studio, you have the artist, you have the engineer, who's the scientist, the sound scientist. Then you have the producer, right? You've got these three things, and I was like the hands-on technician. You can see if you're watching this on a video, you can see behind me there's a recording studio and there's a desk over here. Oh, pointing the wrong way over here. And the sound engineer is the guy that's like mixing all the bits. That gave me a really solid understanding of the mechanics of how sound is recorded, multi-track audio. So, and I'm always been interested in technology. So I was like, what does this microphone sound like? How do you make that bass drum do that? Why is this vocal sound better than that? Then, because I'm a musician and producing is very much a musician's ability, you've got to be able to understand music as a record producer. George Martin famously was the producer of the Beatles, and he was a classically trained musician. Then I got into production. So this now became into the sort of early mid-80s, and giving my age away a little bit here. And I got really interested in dance music. At the time, dance music was like you'd have a record, which was a 7-inch vinyl, and then the record company would hire someone to turn that into a 12-inch dance mix. So they were 12-inch remixes, so-called club mixes. And I got lucky. I kind of had a good handle on this. And then I moved to New York in 1983, a long time ago, and found myself in demand because I understood the very, very early parts of EDM, what became electronic dance music.
Oh, wow.
And so back then, it was two synthesizers and a drum machine
Yeah.
You've probably heard of a Roland 808 or a Roland 909. These are the classic sounds of contemporary EDM. But then it was a machine, and then there was a synthesizer, a Jupiter 8, and then there was these other things. And I was really interested in integrating that into drum machines and what became dance music that we know today. So that led me as a producer into working with some really great singers and artists in the time, and
Oh,
eventually going,
wow.
you know what? I can do that. Yeah, I can write some songs. You've just got to have this faith in you can do stuff.
So,
And I
so
have,
it's
yeah.
it's really this understanding of understanding each of the different parts of it, and
Yes,
then wanting
yes,
to, yes, and I love that
yes,
because keep pushing yourself to be uncomfortable and
yeah.
learning more and being like, "Ooh, I kind of like
Absolutely.
this. This is
Yeah,
awesome."
and don't worry about failing. You just got to figure it out. So that's then I got my band London Beat together, moved back from New York to the UK, met some singers who are actually American, three R&B fantastic African American guys who lived in London, formed the band London Beat. And because I'd had the background as a sound engineer, because I'd had the background as a record producer, I
Yes.
was the only musician in the band, and there was three singers. So three amazing vocalists and me doing everything else. I couldn't have done that if I hadn't had, 5 years experience working with other artists, learning how studios work, right? Seeing how the business works. And so,
Yeah.
you know, if you think about this for anyone listening, let's say that you want to be a chef, right? Or you
Yeah.
want to be involved in the catering, the restaurant business. You've
Yeah.
really got to start. You don't want to start as a chef. You've got to start at the bottom, dishwashing, being, waiting tables, being the front of house, right? Learning to manage a restaurant. And then there's a certain moment where you'd be like, oh, yeah, I want to be a celebrity chef. Yeah, that just doesn't happen like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be a celebrity chef. It doesn't work like,
It's all a journey, and it's that
yeah,
fact of embracing the journey and not fighting it, being like, I hate this time, but it's enjoying those moments and learning from
you
those.
you just put your finger on something. Um, a lot of younger entrepreneurs that I meet don't understand that it's the journey. It's not, yeah, I hate doing this thing. This really sucks. I'm like, you're learning about doing this thing so that when you're doing the next thing, you understand that thing,
Yeah.
right? You've got to, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to learn about funnels. That's how it all works. Sales funnels. That's how the whole
Yeah.
thing works. If you don't understand that and you don't have a foundational experience of how does a sales funnel work? How do you get someone you don't know to buy your service or product? What's the mechanics of that? If you haven't figured that out, you're really not going to be a successful CEO later on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and there's so many different areas from accounting to all of these different facets of entrepreneurship in general, and it's just important for us to realize that no matter what we do, we just have to stack our experiences and continue to learn and grow on what
Yeah.
we started with. Absolutely.
You know what's interesting when I look back in my life is that often a lesson I learned in one area that at the
Yes.
time I was like, oh man, why am I doing this? Actually became really critical later on when I was doing something else,
Yes.
right? Um,
Absolutely.
here's a good example. When I was in the band, those days I was the band leader, drummers
Yeah.
are well known for being like drummers. They're different than other musicians. They're usually drinkers. They're a lot of fun. They just bang stuff constantly. You got to be in time, show up. Drummers
Yeah.
are you have to manage a drummer differently than you have to manage a guitarist. Trust me,
Yeah.
it's a um, when I then went into the next thing I did, which is now you're talking about technology, I got interested in recording studio technology and started a company called Rocket Network. That is a that was the first networking recording studio tool where you could have remote people. You could have an orchestra in LA, and then you could have a guitarist in New York. We
Oh,
put that together.
wow.
What was fascinating was I realized that brilliant developers are like drummers. They're kind of on the spectrum a little bit. They're a little bit on the autism spectrum. They're like kind of differently wired. They're like a little odd. I got a lot of friends who are drummers, and as a result, I was like, you guys are just like my drummer friends.
Yeah. No,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And only based on your experiences can you coincide them and start to
Right.
understand how to deal with them and start to understand people and
Right.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
what drives
Yeah.
them and what motivates them. Because it's not, because if you can't find, if it's not a winning scenario for the drummer or the developer or whatever it is on your team, then you're not going to win. And like these people, it takes time to get them to win as a
Yeah.
leader.
You have to understand that it took me a long time to learn this, that my experience, my personal biases, my personal sort of way I look at the life is mine. And it is different for good or for bad than a lot of other people. So
Yeah.
if you are running you're, let's say you're an entrepreneur, you got a team, you got a developer who is critical to the business, who is managing, the back end, the sales
Yeah.
funnel, these things. You really have to look at life from their perspective. You have to understand why they're doing this. They may not be
Yes.
motivated by a pay rise because for them it's about the beauty of code, right?
Yes.
They may not be motivated by hard deadlines. They may be more motivated by making sure that they've got a feature is that they've got to
Perfection.
look at. And they're looking at the feature and how long will it take to do this feature. If that doesn't fit into the framework that you are looking into their work at, it's really not going to work out. You'll be in,
Yeah.
right?
And there's so many times where we might be those people in those situations, or you might be the boss with an employee who's not incentivized, and it's not always a money situation. It can be a lot of different dynamics where it causes us to realize what do people actually want? And how do
Mm-hmm.
you create that purpose with them? And how do you create an
Mm-hmm.
exciting environment with them where they want to work with you? Because it's not always,
Yeah.
or you want to work for them. Like, how do you find the right placement? Because I feel like there's so many people that, I mean, people listening to this and just people in general who are just a cog in the wrong machine. Like, because we're all
Exactly.
cogs in the machine, and sometimes the cog
Yeah.
doesn't fit. Like,
Well,
and we've all been
you
there.
can expand on that a little bit. That's a really good way of putting it. You're a cog in the wrong machine. You can be a cog in the right machine, but in the wrong place, right?
Oh,
Let's say you get a job, you love what the company does, you love the team, you love the product, the whole ethos is great, and yet you're doing the wrong thing, or you just don't have the skill set to do the thing they've asked you to do. And that is a challenge unless you're aware and unless you're really like, wait a minute, I should be involved in sales, or I should be involved. I hate sales. Why am I doing sales, right? I should be involved in research, or I should
yes.
be involved. There's a lot of different aspects of having a job. And when you have a when you have a job that you really enjoy, it changes your life in such a great way.
Yeah. And but I think that's why it's so important for, like you were just saying, Will, to take inventory on what you do like and what you don't like, to
Hmm.
get to know yourself better. Because as you know
Hmm.
yourself better, you're going to allow yourself to be more successful. So
Yeah,
for you, you do the music, you do the technology,
yeah,
you have the startups. How
yeah.
does the community building even get involved in that? Because it doesn't seem like it coincides, but it's different. Like
It's
how does
different,
it
right?
even happen? Yeah.
So if you think about being in a band, it's a community situation. There's four or five of you, and you're on
Yeah.
stage together as a team,
Yes.
talking and playing live to a community, your audience. It is
Yes.
literally all about people. The technology that we created. So after I quit the band, I got really interested in wide area networking of media assets. That
Yeah.
just means that, as I was saying earlier, you can have different people working on the same piece of professional audio. It could be a soundtrack to a movie. It could be doing foreign language dubbing so that if the movie is shot in English, you got to have a German overdub, right? These are all parts
Oh,
where the
okay.
media is
Yes.
shipped
Yeah.
around, right? This is a very collaborative, community-based kind of system again. So
Yeah.
I've always been really interested in how humans work with humans. So
I, I just want to
about
give it real quick.
yeah,
I
go
think
on.
that's absolutely incredible. The way you explained it, because
Uh-huh.
it's very interesting to me, because I sit there and go, how does community building have to do with a band? And then as
Right.
soon as Will explained it, I'm like, silly. Because you
Yeah.
realize that everything you're doing is one thing. It's not the singing, it's not the drumming,
Right.
it's all cohesive. It's all
Hmm.
flows together,
Hmm.
which I think
Hmm.
is I
Yeah.
appreciate you bringing that to light.
Yeah. People are great. You know, the other thing I discovered in the years I've been on the planet is, despite what the media may be telling you, we are all humans. If we are a human, you could be an Australian fella in the outback. You could be like me here in LA. There could be you. I don't know where you're sitting. Where are you
Tampa,
physically?
Florida, Tampa, Florida.
Okay. So it could be a dude with a beard in Florida. We all have exactly the same needs. We need
Yes,
food, air, water, love, friends, interests, time off. We're all wired the same. We really are. And when we forget that, that's when things go south. But we are all literally the same. It's a beautiful thing.
absolutely.
So,
And it's that
so
understanding that no matter what you do, we're all still have the same responsibility. Like we all
yeah,
have to take care of ourselves. We all have to do
yeah,
these things. And you might see some people sometimes and you're like, how does that happen? How does that happen? And it's like,
yeah,
we're all trying our best here and we're all doing what
yeah.
we can.
So let me jump into this metal. You probably
Yeah,
see, you can
absolutely.
see it says metal with a dot after it. So
Yeah.
metal is community. So metal is a men's group, and it is an acronym: media, entertainment, technology, artists, and leadership. That's how this started. This is an organization that's been around for 22 years, started by my partner in crime, Ken Rakowski, who is the host of the organization. And it is like an edgier version of TED for successful guys. That's what it's like. And why are we a men's group? I'll tell you why. Because men are better men. We men are better men when we're in the company of other kind and heart centered men from many different backgrounds.
Yes.
Now, Metal is an independent group. We're not affiliated with any media publishing group, religious
Yeah.
group, organization of any. We are an independent organization.
Yes.
And we have we have one golden rule within the organization, that is, we never talk politics. It's just not done. And
Yeah.
especially here in the US in the last couple of years, it's just been a constant barrage of like outrage.
Yeah.
And we're like,
Yeah.
no, I want to find out, Jordan, how you doing? What do you care about? Right. I want to find out about, what do you do at school? What was your main subject? How's it going in your life? You got any kids yet? Right. These are
Yeah.
the human things that so the guys, many hundreds of guys in the group, we get to know each other as guys. And the value, you heard me say, guys from many different backgrounds. And that is the key
Yeah.
because, right now,
Yeah. So I
you're
100%. Yeah. So
right.
I have the Edwards Consulting and I do a Monday night men's group and it's definitely in the earlier stages than
Yeah.
metal is, but
Yeah.
it's that idea of you're around people that are inspiring you and it causes you to have different perspectives even if they're in different jobs or different businesses or different anything. It's not always
Mhm.
like I was born in Thailand and now we're different perspectives. That is different
Right.
perspectives, but even
For
being
sure.
like I work in real estate or I work in music or I do this and like
Right.
literally the podcast is one of the ways I get my different perspectives in because it's so
Absolutely.
informative from different people. But to get a holistic perspective, which is what we're all looking for,
Right.
it's super valuable. And you're expediting it with being part of these different men's groups because they really do give you
Yeah.
so many different directions. And it's not just your company that you're used to, but it's a bunch of
Yeah.
different leaders, which I think is really awesome.
Your podcast was interesting to us because you are focused on how do you get better at life, right? I mean, at a very
Yes.
kind of
Yeah, no,
simplistic level. How
absolutely.
can I
It's
be more
optimize.
productive? How, optimize my life. How can I do that?
Yeah, it's
And
optimizing your life because you start to realize how many people just, I don't know, it was really interesting to me because I started to realize like when COVID was going on, everyone's
Mhm.
like shutdowns, this, bad, this, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. And then you start to realize you're like, wait a second, but there's people who are winning and there's people who are enjoying their life no matter whether it's shutdowns, no matter whether they live in America, no matter if they live in Canada, Australia,
Right.
wherever, there's
Right.
always people that
Right.
are winning.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized. And I'm like, sometimes it takes that little bit because you got to expand your horizons to get around those
Hmm.
people. So I realized
Yeah.
that like talking to people like you will, I'm going to learn something. So I know
Right.
one of the really big things that you guys did, you got, is it like a research project or a book
Yeah.
or kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
called
It was
masculine
this.
intelligence? Yeah.
Yeah. Masculine intelligence. Here we go. this is this is the book. We this is available on our website, which is metal.men. This is still fairly early days in the launch of this. And this is we call it masculine intelligence, and it's about 8 core and common principles that successful men have. And I'm going to talk about them if it's all right with you in a second.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
can talk through them.
absolutely. Because
And
I think it's super beneficial for people to I mean, Think and Grow Rich was based off the same principle. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
All of
yeah,
these ideas of asking,
absolutely.
taking
Absolutely.
inventory of who did well, why did they do well, what are their principles, and how do we apply them to our own life allows people to live a better experience. And that's exactly what this is.
Yeah, I wanted to find out, what do successful people, men, because I'm a men's group, but this is entirely valid for any kind of human.
Yeah.
What do we have in common? But I wanted to know general principles, not so much as like, I did this. If you do this, you'll be successful. Think and Grow Rich is
Yeah.
very like, here's the thing: do this, do this, do this, do this.
Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah.
to go, are there general principles that we all have? And there are 8. And we got to these 8 by doing a research project with 450 of our guys, really detailed. There were open ended questions, conversations, focus groups, one on ones. And we wanted to figure out, are there 8 core principles? And the answer to the question is yes, there are.
Mm.
And I'm going to ask you because you're a successful fellow yourself. I know we got some years between us, but I can recognize a lot of things in the way you look at things is the way that we look at things here.
Yeah.
The first one is curiosity.
Yeah.
You've got to be curious to be successful. And a good example is when you get on a plane, Jordan, and there's an in-flight magazine in the seat in front of you, you're curious, just want to have a look
Yeah.
through, right?
No,
You know,
absolutely.
right? And you'll be like, kitchens in South Carolina. I had no idea there. That's so interesting, right? I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So we're curious, and a lifelong curiosity in the things around us. Next thing is creativity.
Yeah, and just real
We're all,
quick before you jump on
yeah,
curiosity,
yeah,
I think curiosity is one of the biggest ones for myself, just because
right,
when you really sit there and think about it, like that's the whole reason I'm doing the podcast because I'm curious. I want to learn. Like
right,
I want to ask questions because like when I was a kid, I would ask questions and they were like, "Hey, too many questions. Like we're done with the
yeah,
questions here." So with
right,
the podcast, I have to go to different people and ask different questions. So no one ever
yeah,
gets tired of the too many questions. But the curiosity is something in that lifelong learning because there's so many people who
right,
grew up, literally went to college, and then they're like, "I'm not learning anything," and it's like bad move. You do
right,
you. But like you got to be
yeah,
curious and continue learning, continuing seeing what success leads to.
right.
Absolutely.
I mean, we were the why kids. You probably the same. Where
Yeah.
why? Why is the
Yeah.
sky blue? Okay, my dad would be like, well, why is
I'll come up with
space
something.
black?
I'll come up with
Yeah,
something.
why is space black? And why is the sky blue? You're like, well, that's to do with the refractive index. Well, why? What is why is it refractive?
Yeah, yeah.
just you can just keep going. Yeah. So then creativity. If you are curious about life, you'll find something, and you're like, ah. I've just found a stick in the yard and it's shaped like this. And I'm creative. You know what I could do? I could turn that into a catapult as a terrible 8-year-old. I
Yeah.
got a stick and it's shaped like this. And if I get a rubber band, I can then
Yeah.
put it through. Now I can annoy the people next door. That's what we were like as kids, creativity. Um,
Yeah.
then the next
Absolutely.
thing,
'Cause creativity allows you to really just open up your mindset and open up what is possible. And it
yeah,
allows you to see the things that aren't there yet. You know what I mean? So the
you got it.
creativity is the idea, like what you just said, where I found a stick. and now we have a
Right.
catapult. So I think it's an important one because most people just completely miss the ball on it. Because and a
Yeah,
lot
you
of
need,
jobs don't allow you to be creative. So people
right,
lose that spark. And if you're not
right.
working it, if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it. And people don't you gotta work these muscles, all eight of these all have to be worked.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the creativity is just a constant muscle that you always have to think about. If you're working in a situation where there's a lot of structure and process, just be aware that you can probably, with a fresh view on the structure and process, suggest improvements that will help things in some
Yeah.
way. Not always, not always, but
Yeah.
if yeah, if you're not able to do that, think about changing your work situation. The next one is resilience. I mean, are you resilient,
You gotta be.
Jordan? Right?
You have to be. You have to be. I mean, with the world, I mean, there's just so much that you could negatively stack, you could positively
Yeah.
stack, and like there's just so many things that happen that are outside of our control that I think resilience is it's something where we just sometimes like
Yeah.
there's some days where you're like, ah man, that was tough. Like, but you keep
Well,
pushing.
a lot of life is a numbers game. It depends what you're doing. Let's talk about
100%.
dating for a second, right?
Yeah.
Bars are usually terrible places to meet someone of interest in the opposite, that you're looking for, that you want to go out with. But if you are single and you're looking for a mate, just be constantly aware that bars are a really bad place to meet because whatever. But there are lots of other interesting places where you can meet interesting people. The
Yeah.
supermarket, if you go to church, at church, if you go on hikes, right? If you are not a creepy dude and you are really kind of easygoing and you can smile, you can approach, someone, especially if it's not in a situation where it's expected. You can be like, "Hey, what's up?" Just start a conversation. That's a numbers game because you know 9 times out of 10, 18 times out of 20, you're just going to say hello to someone. But if you get a vibe and you stay talking a little bit longer, you can say, "Hey, are you single? Do you want to get a coffee?" Right? It's a numbers game, and resilience is the 9 times out of 10 nothing happened.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because David Meltzer, he came on and he literally talked
Oh,
about
we
that
love David.
concept
Yeah, he's
where
talked
he
to us
talked
many
about
times. Yeah.
that concept where he was saying every no is one step closer to the yes. So
Yes, and yes, and
if
yes,
you
and
if you view it that way, then we'll be closer and closer and closer.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and in business, resilience is understanding that most of the ideas that we test in terms of products, product launches, businesses we start are just experiments,
Yes,
right? An
absolutely.
experiment. It's not a fail business. It's an experiment that didn't work. We'll try something else. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So far we've had curiosity, creativity, and resilience. The next one is integrity. This is worth a little conversation. Integrity is keeping your word,
Yeah,
really. A personal integrity is keeping your word. Business integrity is making sure that the product that you sell does what it says it does, or
yeah,
if you have a 30-day guarantee, make sure that you honor that. Um, Business integrity could be to do with other aspects of the industry you're in, right?
yeah,
And you may choose not to worry about those things if you're in, let's say, let's say you've built a product and it's very successful, but it actually pollutes the environment, or the packaging that you're delivering it in is cheap and it's in it, but it actually goes straight into the landfill. Is that an integrity? Good
yeah,
question, right? Good question. So integrity, especially talking from a man's perspective here, as you get into your 30s and your 40s, you 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 find out the hard way. A lot of guys find out the hard way that your integrity is really critical.
yeah,
People do repeat business with you if you have integrity in what you do. You
yeah,
can do a lot of business one time, right?
yeah. Absolutely.
Have you
100%.
found in the guests that you've had on your Meltzer's a really interesting example. Have you found that there's been conversations around integrity in the past?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple different groups that I've been a part of, and
Mm.
they coincide with the integrity because you start to realize that if you're not, the way I learned about it was basically that no matter what you do, you're always testing people. Like if you're
Mm.
testing person, and what that means is like, okay, I give you, you say you're going to do something, and it's like, did they do it? Did they not do it? And it's like, it's not like I'm never going to talk to them again, but it's like, hey, we'll give a little knock on that, or maybe we'll follow up
Yeah,
and we'll see if maybe they forgot or whatever it was.
yeah,
But
yeah.
there's a doing the right thing, and then there's not doing the right thing sometimes, and I think that's
Right.
really important,
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
especially when
And
people aren't there. Yeah.
there are times too when you got to cut someone some slack.
Yeah,
You know,
complete
you,
understanding. Yes. So I mean,
you
that's the
got to
other
be.
thing where I've talked to guests about it, and it's super interesting. Like I had one guest come on, and he's like, hey man, like I'm glad we were able to schedule this, like blah blah blah. And he goes, yeah, the guy before, like I had one on another podcast and I had to reschedule him two or three times, and the guy lost it on me.
Yeah.
And he's
Uh-huh.
like, I didn't go on a podcast. He's like, I didn't want to deal with
Uh-huh.
the he because he was too attached to the outcome. And so like
Right.
that's one of the things for me where it's like I expect things to get moved eight times. Like if I have that
Yeah.
expectation, then I sit there and I'm like, okay, it went perfectly, fantastic. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. The next thing for us as a men's group is brotherhood.
Yes.
Successful men usually have guys around them that are not relatives and they're not like, the fathers of their kids' friends, random, or just sort of random guys you meet. These are guys who are successful, like you
Yeah.
are, but usually from other fields, right? A lot of
Yeah.
doctors, a lot of physicians know a lot of physicians. And so a lot of
Yeah.
physicians end up with just other physicians. And that's a weird thing. And so here at Metal, this is where the brotherhood of meeting other successful guys becomes really important because steel sharpens steel, iron sharpens iron, right? And
Yes.
so,
I completely agree with this. And I think a lot of the time it's funny, like you'll be like, oh, like you'll hear some people who are like had more life experience and they're like, oh, I met my best friend in my apartment complex. And I'm like,
right.
your best friend? Like
Yeah.
and most of it is just out of convenience. But then
Yeah,
as
that's
you
right.
start going older and older and older, you start being able to be really intentional with the friends you choose or the people you like to be around or
Yeah.
whatever it may
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Or you close yourself off and you don't want to do that. But I do think there is a value in having those deep conversations with people who have zero stake besides wanting you to be happy and successful. Like
You
that's
got it.
super valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. People, guys that get to know you and care about you, you know,
Yes.
see you on the journey. And this is true for women's groups. It's exactly the same. Um,
Yeah.
you know, women.
Women are actually much better at maintaining relationships than men.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Uh, so the next thing is financial literacy. And successful guys have have understood how to get money, keep money, and grow money. And it doesn't mean you got to be a whiz on the stock, with stocks or a crypto bro, but you just got to understand how it works. Tax is inevitable. That's
Yeah.
correct. There are ways to avoid tax, but if you get into evading tax, it can go south very quickly. So there are in business there are strategic ways you can think about wealth creation. You can think about family trusts, generational wealth. There are ways you can you know if your business isn't profitable, you find you're running a business, you're busy but you're not making enough money, you're just working too hard. There are ways they're looking at that with financial literacy. It could be, you look at expenses. Okay. That's an
Yeah.
obvious one, right? It could be a combination of cutting back expenses and then pricing,
Yes.
right? It could be a combo of, your margin is like 6%. That's like a gas station, dude. That's not a good idea, right? So what are you going to do? You may be selling the wrong product.
100%. And
Right.
financial literacy was one of the things where I realized I actually got an accounting degree out of college, and
Okay.
financial literacy was one of the things I realized because I'm like, if you if you just make a few decisions differently than other people, you could live
Hmm.
very, very different lives. And it's
Hmm.
like, whoa. And like
Yeah.
it's so profound, the financial literacy component. Like if you just automatically have the money taken out of your account and it goes to an investment thing, like step up, like great step.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like I coach
Yeah.
people and like I'll help them with some of this stuff. And it's just they're like, I'm good for like, because if you just set it forever, it's done forever. Like you don't have to
Right.
think about it. And you're like, good for you.
Yeah.
Like, and it's this
I
thing. Yeah.
I recently remembered that I had this service called Acorn. I'm nothing to do with them, by the way. I'm just like, this is
I
something that
have
I did.
Acorn as well.
You have Acorn too, right? And I was one of their very, very, very early customers back when they
Yeah.
started a long time ago now.
Yeah.
And I set it up so that I think I round up the pennies.
Yes.
Is that how you do it? Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Acorn, what they do is they round up. Some of them do the roundup, and then some of them
Hmm.
do. It was the one place where I found I could do a weekly automatic
Yeah.
deposit. So I
That's what
would
I do.
take out.
Yeah.
So I would take out like it was funny because I was doing like $25 a week, $30 a
Yeah.
week. And then I look back and I'm like, damn, like there's a
Yeah.
few grand in there. And then you start to realize you're like, okay, like I'm going to use this as my travel fund. So I would go on
Right.
trips and then I would just take the money out of there and I'm like, free
Yeah.
trip.
Yeah, I put in $5. I totally forgot I got this. So I literally had $5 a month going into this with the roundup, whatever it was. Never looked at it, forgot about everything, changed email address. Right. So I wasn't even been told that it was happening. And then somehow I remembered, like, oh, wait a minute. Oh my God, I've been putting whatever this is.
Yeah, the money in every single month. Yeah,
Acorn.
there's got to be something.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. So anyway,
But
financial literacy, yes.
it's
You
profound.
got to
No, but
understand it.
the point is there for everyone listening. What Will did is it becomes profound.
Hmm.
Like the very minor pennies and the minor dollars and this whole thing, and then you look at it and you're like the best move is to literally never touch it again. Like
Yeah.
literally, if you
Yeah.
buy something, if you buy a good
Yeah.
thing and you never touch it again, it's probably the
Yeah.
best move you can make.
Yeah. I here's what I did with the early Bitcoin. I was bright enough to get some Bitcoin back in when it was like nobody had any
Yeah,
idea what this is. And then I was like, I'm never going to look at that again. Well, I will do it one day. And so I still never look at it. I have no idea.
really.
I have no idea what's in it, and I'm not interested because otherwise you get emotionally charged and
Oh
like, oh
my
my God, it's
God. And
gone
then
up.
you're
I
tracking
made
it every
another
minute.
$2 in the last 30 seconds, right? And so at some point when I really need it, when I'm in retiring, I'll be like, oh, I wonder where that is these days, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, Career development, professional development. To be a successful guy, you've always got to be learning about your industry, things that are happening, mentoring. You need to have a mentor. You need to have a coach. A mentor is someone you see occasionally, right? Who's doing
Yeah.
this because they do it out of love. There's no money usually transmitted. You're paid as a mentor. But as a coach, yeah, you need to hire a coach. It really helps to have someone who knows your industry, who can call you on your bad behavior,
Yeah.
self-defeating. Yeah, but by bad behavior, I'm talking about, you going the easy route, just where someone who can say to you, hey, have you noticed that you self-sabotage often in these circumstances, X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
It is
Yeah. And
really,
it's also a coach holds you accountable to what you said you were going to do.
yeah,
Helps you have more self-confidence and integrity in what you want to do. So when
yeah.
you invest in yourself, you're ready to level up in these different regards of whatever aspect of life you're looking at doing.
Hmm.
100%.
Yeah, so to be successful, you have to be conscious of that and have that as part of your life. And then the last one is work-life balance. And what does that mean? Well, health and wellness, right?
Yes.
For starters, uh, we live in we live in really unique times in a certain way, and screen time, there's an
Yes.
accelerating rate of change. It's
Yes.
accelerating.
Yes.
Um, The tools that we use for business are changing all the time. We may know Microsoft Excel. Anybody in business has to know that today.
Yeah.
In 10 years, do you think that is going to be what we're using? I doubt it.
Yeah.
So any Excel spreadsheet skills you have today are going to be irrelevant because it's going to be some AI. I've already started doing this with ChatGPT. Make me a spreadsheet that projects the da 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 and the da da da. I'm just talking to it. And it's
Yeah.
doing this stuff. It's not very good yet today. I can do it
Yeah.
way better in Excel, but I'm like,
It's
this
close.
is this
It's
is I
very
can see how
interesting.
this is going to go, right? Talking to a spreadsheet. What?
Yeah.
Give me the margin on a XYZ product when this happens, and then there's going to be a disaster in this part of the world, and right, and
Yeah.
it's going to put all that together for you. So,
Yeah.
um, the accelerating rate of change means that you have to put a lot of attention when you're at work on screen time. Here's the thing: in your personal life, your real time, your real lifetime, that's when we need to slow down, be
Okay.
present, right? Take a walk on the beach, leave your phones at home, hang out with your kid. Your kid's only
Yeah.
going to be 6 once this year.
Yeah.
Hang out. Uh, when you have people around for dinner, make a rule. No, you know, no phones at the dining table. No talking about politics. Just whatever. You know what I'm saying? Just be really present. And with older people, when you're with your grandparents, sit and tune in to where they're at, tune in, listen, you know. And so work-life balance is this, especially as successful men, we are constantly managing the balance between the insanely difficult to keep up accelerating rate of change in all things
Yes.
and then slowing down over here. And successful men have always had to manage this balance between working hours, 18 hours a day in a startup, and then having a family. And so just being conscious of that is a real skill. I've
Absolutely.
messed up on that many times over the years.
Absolutely. I think Og Mandino, he wrote The Greatest Salesman in the World, and he talked about that where he said you have to be married to work and married to your family, but you can't be married at the same time. Basically, what he was
Yeah,
getting at is you go to work, you don't worry about your family. You go to your family, you don't worry about work. And it's these ideas and how do you create that? And like one of the ways I actually was able to create that with my new we just got married, but my new wife, Madison,
right,
we
right.
traveled Europe for 7 weeks. So we would
Okay.
work US hours and then we would
Yeah,
travel. So we had those
yeah.
extra time together. So instead of watching Netflix on a Thursday night, we were
Uh-huh.
now exploring the in Barcelona or in Nice, France, or in
Very
London.
cool.
Just the more,
Yeah,
yeah, because it
yeah,
allows you to coincide both those times, but you get better moments together. So,
yeah.
Will, for you, you mentioned a few things that were super interesting to me. It was stuff about the future, and
Mm.
what do you see for the future? What do you think people, the audience, should know to prepare for the future? Because you mentioned a few things where you're like, I'm early in Bitcoin, like the AI is coming, all this stuff. I'm like, this guy seems to know some stuff that's going on. So, is there anything that you think would be important for people to know for the future?
There are, if you kind of think about the history of Western
Yeah.
society, there are a few things that have happened that have really changed things. The invention of the car, right?
Yes.
When we went from a horse-based transportation system to the railway system. Obviously,
Yes.
you know the history of how that opened up the the West and the Midwest with the train system back in the 1800s. The um, uh, next thing was the car. That changed everything. And then the next thing was flying, planes. That changed
Yes.
everything. And then we had the web in the 90s. That
Yeah.
changed e-commerce. That changed everything. The jury's out on whether crypto as we see it today will change everything. It clearly will in some way. I don't think anybody has a real handle on how it's going to change. Will we go to a full digital currency? Will the dollar be digital? I have no idea. It's a very interesting world. But the thing that is about to change everything, and we're starting to see it already happening, is artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And it is quite possibly the biggest change, in my view, that society has had so far, including, space travel and all these other fantastic, game-changing thing that's happened. And nobody knows exactly how it's going to pan out. And we're still in
Yeah.
the super, super early stages.
Yeah.
Um, I had an experience here myself in Los Angeles with a Waymo. These are the self-drive cabs. They
Oh, I
are
heard about
white.
this.
They have the little radar thing on the top. And they're now, I was a beta user of this service. And the first time you get in one, it's like an Uber service, right? You
Yeah.
call, you put the address in, da 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 da,
Yeah.
and then you just wait. Then a car with no one driving shows up, parks in a really tricky spot perfectly. And there's a little thing on the top that has my initials, WH. You go over to it, you press a button on the thing and on the app, and it says open door, unlock car, and you get in, and he goes, "Hello, Will, how are you?" I'm like, "What?" And it says, "Are you ready? Put your seatbelts on." I'm like, "Okay." And then it says you press the button in the car, and now it drives you to the new place with no one in it.
Oh my
And the
goodness.
first time I did it, I was like, "Oh my God, is this going to be all right?" 30 seconds later, I was like, "Oh, this is safe because it sees all the traffic. It's really driving well. It's not like driving
Yeah.
like your granny. It's not like
No, but
it's
it's got
nipping
more.
in and
It's
out.
got
It's
more cameras. It sees all the
yeah,
visual. It's not
right?
playing on its phone.
No,
Like,
no. And that changed for me. I said to myself, "Oh yeah, the new generation of kids. I don't know what the cutoff is. If you're 10 years old today, you may learn to drive like you ride a horse in our society, but most people would, right? Some people still ride horses, right? Of
I,
course,
yeah.
right? But
I.
driving for a new generation, why would you drive? It's a pain in the butt most
It
of the
also
time.
it takes up a lot of time.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you could
And
have your
so
commute and be able to sit in the car for an hour, why would you not?
I have literally done this where I've gone out, shot a bunch of video for,
Yeah.
for the business, and then in the car, in the Waymo on the way back, an hour. It's LA, a lot of traffic. I'm able to actually edit the video up, get it completely ready, and when I'm at home, ready to upload.
Yeah.
Wow, I just got an
Yeah.
hour. So that's a good example of how AI is changing driving and huming things. So I just think that of being aware of how AI will change legal. If you need to
Yeah.
hire a paralegal, there are now AI tools that are better than humans, right?
Yes. And
Right.
they're on demand. So
And
yeah, no, it's challenging. So you got to figure out what your niche is and how you can connect and where you can
yeah,
provide value.
but
Absolutely.
there's always new opportunities,
Yes.
right? Always, always. It's the way it works. 25 years ago, there was no such thing as SEO, search engine
Yeah.
optimization. There was no such thing as a real search engine, maybe 30, whenever it was, 30 years ago, right? And so there was, when the web came out and then Google came out, there was this new search engine optimization. I'm not coming up. I'm a chiropractor. I'm here in, Long Beach, California. And so now you have to change your website so that you're visible, so that if someone's looking for back pain, Long
Yeah.
Beach, you come up, right? So that was a job that got developed completely as sort of on the back of the technology of the commercial web coming along. And
Yes.
it is clear to me that there are going to be many, many new roles and new jobs that we can't even imagine today that will
Absolutely.
be well paid and you can do remotely. And so I think humans have amazing resilience, and I think we have amazing sort of entrepreneurial spirit. It's built into who we are. And so I think we'll be more than okay. I think many of the jobs we do today, Jordan, well, not you and me talking now, hopefully, but many of the jobs we do as humans are just like really stupid. What a crazy way to be. I mean, what about being an Uber driver? You are driving a car around for people. I mean, I know it's a job, but that job's going to disappear inevitably
Yeah.
in time
No, I
because of
mean
the Waymos. A
yeah, there's
terrible way to live your life. You shouldn't be doing
well
that. You should be doing something else.
that yeah, I mean, but coming back to the values, that doesn't allow you. I mean, curiosity, you could be curious with what's going on, but you don't really have that creative principle. It doesn't really build the resilient. Like there's a
No.
lot of stuff to it that doesn't allow you to really be your full authentic self. And I think
Yeah.
finding that true authentic self is really what we're all looking for. So, Will, it's been awesome for you to share about the
Mhm.
masculine intelligence, the eight core principles. Where can
Yeah.
people learn more about you, learn more about metal, learn about what's going on?
Metal.men. That's the website, metal.men. And love to see you. Any women listening to this, about 20% of our new members come in from the wife of a current guy recommending metal to her girlfriend's husband.
Wow.
And so we are better men when we're in the company of other good men. And so metal.men is where you find out all about us. If you're a guy and you're interested in finding out, you can get a free guest pass on the site and check out we do two things. We are a virtual community. We get together on a Saturday. We have a show, a Zoom-based show on a Saturday morning Pacific. And then we get together in person 3 times a year. So hope
Awesome.
to see you at one of the events, Jordan. You meet some interesting
Awesome.
dudes. I'm just one of, one of 800.
Absolutely. Awesome. Will, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for reaching the end of the podcast. For that, we'll give you a complimentary coaching session in the link below with Edwards Consulting. Hope to see you there and have a great day and keep clocking in.